that going. Perfect. All right. And let me turn my screen share on and we're going to rock and roll through this. Okay. All right. You all should be seeing my screen. Are you all seeing the Harrisonville Farmers Market Annual Vendor Meeting agenda? Okay. All right. I am going to assume that we are, and we're going to get into this. So thanks for being here today. I see some returning vendors. I see some new folks on the call. Welcome to both of you. Again, my name is Amanda Stites, volunteer market manager. On the call, I also have Lori, who's joining us. Lori is also a volunteer market manager. And then there's a third volunteer, Jessica Long, who was at our in-person meeting yesterday, but is not on our virtual meeting today. If you have questions as either a new or, returning vendor, any of us are great options to reach out to for questions or other needs you may have. If you are a new vendor and you have not already submitted over to me a vendor form that you would have found over here on our lovethesquare.org farmers market page, this vendor's registration form right here. If you've not already followed the instructions to send that over to the Harrisonville Farmers Market email address, just make sure you go ahead and complete that, as soon as you have a chance so that we can get you in our records. If you're a returning vendor, you do not have to worry about completing that again this year unless some of your information has changed. So, new address, new phone number, really different products that maybe you're selling compared to like last year, things like that. It's not a records renewal year. Last year was, so it'll be a couple years before we go through and just, have everybody update their information. Okay. So that takes us on to the next section. So information for vendors. I just flipped over here to the lovethesquare.org farmers market page. That really is the centralized place where you can find, really all of the information that we're going to cover today and a lot of other information that can be really helpful if you're looking for things to kind of point you in the right direction. Things like, how do I get a hold of the health department and what are some of the guidelines? If I'm going to sell products, based on the pound and I'm going to weigh them, where do I get started with getting a scale certified? Information on great programs out there for folks that are, selling produce, like the Senior Farmers Market Nutritional Program and WIC. Through the Missouri Department of Agriculture. I've got some information out there, those, and also copies of the farmers market rules. So again, back on the website, you can find a lot of this great information here in the vendor section, just by expanding these sections. So you can find the phone number for the health department. We'll talk a little bit more about when you want to reach out to them today. Oh, somebody has got some doggies. All right. So if you're the person with the doggies, if you can hit mute, that would be really helpful. Thank you. We also have pamphlets in here that are from the health department that cover things that you would want to know about, how to sell at the farmer's market in general. Um, you know, everything from having what is a safe temperature to store foods at, like that would apply to eggs as well, things like that. How to get started with Missouri egg license, that certified scale information, right? So we've collected, over the years, a lot of this information that can help guide you in the right direction, as well as, right, that information that I mentioned about, connecting with those Missouri Department of Agriculture programs that are a great way to expand your reach if you're a produce seller. Okay, so make sure you utilize that information if that applies to any of the products that you intend to sell. The next thing to know about is the Harrisonville Farmers Market Vendor Group. Now, as we get ready for the upcoming season and during the season, this is a really important one because it'll help us stay connected to each other. This is a great way for myself and the other market managers to reach out to, all our vendors really quickly. This comes in handy often when we have, some, potentially severe weather coming in the morning about the same time we'd be set up, right? So we need to kind of reach out to everybody and say, okay, here's the plan, for this morning. This is a great way to do it. So we have some step-by-step here on how you'll find that. So if you're on Facebook, you will search for this Harrisonville Farmers Market Vendors. That's a closed vendor group. And so once you're there, you'll click a button to request to join that group. That'll get over to the market managers. If we have your form that you've submitted to become a vendor at the market, that's all we need. We'll go ahead and click and add you, to that closed group. So you'll get all of those notifications that we might send, throughout the season. Okay. I'll do this last section, and then I'll kind of pause here, make sure we're all doing okay so far. And that is help spread the word. So I always consider this one of the most important things that you as a vendor in our 11th season at the Harrisonville Farmers and Artists Market can do, is to help set yourself up for success and the whole market up for success by spreading the word about the great thing that we have going on, in our 11th year in downtown Harrisonville with our market. So there are some really easy ways that you can do that. Sharing our Harrisonville Farmers Market Facebook page, the public-facing page, is a really good way to do that. I've included here, how you'll find that on Facebook. So the link is right there. You can share, things that we share on that page. So like every Saturday, we'll do either like a little slideshow set to music, showing off all of the great things people are bringing to market. We'll have other posts, throughout the week, upcoming events, things like that. So helping us spread the word about what's happening that way is a really easy way to do that. I will also, once the market starts, you'll find me at the Love the Harrisonville Square nonprofit booth. And I will always have with me big stacks of flyers that advertise the Harrisonville Farmers Market with me. And you're always welcome to come down and grab a stack of those. Take those with you, to work, maybe to, maybe to church, somewhere else that, that where you frequent, the gym, wherever it is. Where you're out and about, that you might be able to leave some of those flyers, stick one up on a bulletin board, right? All of those things help people remember, that, oh yeah, that's going on Saturday mornings. I've been meaning to go check that out, right? So those are some easy things that you can do to help. Okay. So I'll stop there, do a check-in, and then we'll move on to talk about important dates. Any questions so far? Okay. Good stuff. All right, let's talk about important dates. So this is a little list of some of the big things going on in the upcoming season. The first one, of course, is opening day. That is June 1st this year. So the first Saturday in June is always our opening day. That'll be normal hours, set up at 7, open at 8, close at noon. But that'll still be an exciting day because, that's just the first day of the whole season. We're going to kick it off, and we usually do something a little extra fun on that day. The next Saturday will be our first second Saturday. And on the second Saturday, we, every month of the season, combine the Farmers and Artists Market with kind of our sister event, which is the Junk in the Trunk Flea Market. So on those days, we actually have 2 events running. The Farmers Market on Lexington Street, where we always are. And then on, the other sides of the square, we have the flea market event. So that just kind of doubles, right, the size of the event on those second Saturdays. And then on top of that, we try and make that even a little more like a festival kind of, atmosphere. So we will do things like for June Bloom, which is the theme for that month, we have the Master Gardeners coming to do a booth and some fun, raffles and activities. We have the Cass County Library coming in to do some fun activities for kids. We're working now to line up some live music. Maybe like a balloon artist, stuff like that, that just kind of, adds a little extra excitement to the day. It matches our theme. I always encourage vendors, if you have a fun idea on how you can do something at your booth that, plays off that theme on those days, I think that's fun too. So June Bloom will be June 8th. That'll be our theme for the day. Same hours, 8 to noon. In July, the second Saturday, the theme this year will be Dog Days of Summer. So if you are an experienced vendor, you know how many of our 4-legged friends visit the market every single week. So we're going to have some fun, especially for the dogs that visit our market. And we're going to do some fun things that they would enjoy and, of course, that their owners would enjoy. So I'll kind of fill you on more details, as we get a little closer to time on what that looks like. But, we're looking for things like mobile nail grooming or some fun, things for dogs, maybe a dog photo contest, right? We're just having a lot of fun on that theme that day. In August, that second Saturday's theme, and this is one that we've done, I think, for the past 3 or 4 years now, is Block Party on the Square. So on that Saturday, we kind of, we do a lot of fun stuff for kids in particular. So we do kind of carnival style games. We usually have a bounce house, a face painter. A lot of other groups in the community like to come out and bring activities for the kids that day, because it just kind of lines itself up where it's usually one of those, it's usually like the last weekend right before everybody goes back to school. So it's kind of a big farewell to summer kind of a day. We will have also the antique transportation show again as part of that event. So all kinds of older tractors and cars and things like that that people really enjoy. In September, the second Saturday theme is Fall Flare. So we'll make that themed around, the start of autumn coming to the square. So we'll be doing some fun fall-themed activities on that day. Now, the last day of the farmers market is September 28th. So that's the last day with regular hours, 8 to noon on Lexington Street. But there is one more sales opportunity. And this is a partnership through Love the Square, the nonprofit that, the nonprofit that the farmers market is part of, and the Harrisonville Chamber of Commerce, who runs and organizes the Log Cabin Festival. On that day, we will have special hours where we set up in the morning, but sell into the evening. So that tends to set itself up as like a 10 or 12 hour day, depending on, exactly when your load time and, load out is. It is a full scale festival. So it is a long day, but it is a very busy sales day. Vendors aren't required to participate in that, but you're welcome to participate in that. And I will make sure I come and talk to, everybody as we get closer to time about that. But I just want you to kind of, keep that in mind as you're looking at your calendars, that as a vendor at the farmers market, that opportunity will be open to you. And that is on October 5th this year. Okay. So those are some important dates to know about, plan for. Again, I'll share lots of additional information as we get closer to all of those dates. And with that, then, we'd be ready to hop over into the 2024 market rules. We'll review those together so that, everybody knows exactly what those rules mean. And then after that, we'll talk about, the vendor spaces, the types of spaces that we offer. And then you'll have an opportunity, if you're interested in a seasonal space, to put your name in for a seasonal space after that. That'll be how we wrap up the meeting. So I'm going to actually cover this last part on the agenda here first. And that is a little bit of, information on how you can reach out to us. So we already talked about the Farmers Market Facebook page. That is a really great way to contact us. You can send us a message through that page. You can reach us on the vendor group. Those messages will get, to myself, Lori, or Jessica, one of the volunteer market managers. But if you don't have Facebook, or, just not easily accessible to you and you need to get a hold of us, you can text or leave a message at this number. So this is my cell number. I will tell you, with total honesty, the best way to get me there is to text. I'll just be quicker to respond that way. So I'm usually running around doing a million things, and I got 2 kiddos. So text is a little easier for me to respond quickly to. Sometimes I'm unlikely to miss a call because I'm literally juggling a few things all at once. So... but yeah, this is a great way, especially if you need to get a hold of me, and you don't have the Facebook option handy. Okay. All right. So let me just pop over here real quick. I always want to take a look in the chat, make sure we don't have any questions there. All right. We're doing great. All right. We'll hop on over to the rules. All right. So in your packet behind the agenda, you will find a complete copy of the rules, as well as the information on the spaces and how we do the seasonal space selection process. So you'll have all of that information, and we're just going to run through it now. So market rules and policies. So basically, all vendors must follow these rules and policies, as described below. Number 1, management reserves the right to refuse entry or remove vendors for failure to comply with the rules or policies. So, follow the rules, or you might have to ask you to leave. Management may make additional requests as necessary for vendor and patron safety. This includes closing the market for inclement weather. So bottom line there, our primary responsibility as a market manager is to make sure that you as vendors and our customers remain safe, okay? So if at any time there is a situation that we feel is unsafe or may become unsafe, we may ask you to do something. It may not be explicitly stated here in the rules, but we may ask you to do something if we think, we need to for safety reasons. Okay. We will close the market if we have a weather situation brewing. That can include for lightning, strong winds, right, hail, true severe weather, right? There's a lot of different elements that can, make that a concern for us at the market. We always try to be really responsive and be very in touch with everyone and communicate, what's going on. But just be aware that has happened in the past. Sometimes we're able to just kind of take a little break, let the weather, pass by, and then we can quickly reopen again. There have been other days where, the weather's just been unfriendly and stayed so for the majority of the market, and we've had to just call it a day. 3, all products sold must be produced, grown, or harvested within 35 miles of Harrisonville. Products sold that are not produced or harvested by the vendor that sells them must display an informational placard stating the source of the item. Products not produced by the vendor are subject to approval by market managers and cannot comprise more than 33% of the products sold by the vendor. I'll break this one down a little bit because this one can get a little confusing. We want to feature local products, right? So we kind of set a radius, although 35 miles from, the outskirts of Harrisonville is a pretty wide area. So we've not had very many people, if any, that, kind of fall outside of that boundary. If you're not sure, ask. Now, the products sold, not produced or harvested. Now, we recognize that there are some of our vendors who may do things like it's not something that they've made or grown, but they have, worked a deal where it's maybe a friend or a family member, a neighbor next door. They're growing, say, peaches is one that's come up in the past. They're growing peaches. They're not growing peaches, but they've kind of worked out a deal where, the neighbor or friend says, hey, would you mind taking my peaches to market? I don't have time to go to market, right? Maybe I've got health concerns, right? There's kind of a situation that comes up, and then, they ask, well, could I sell my friend's peaches here? We're okay with that as long as it doesn't become, right, the main thing that you're doing at your booth. The other thing is that we always want to be honest and transparent with our customers. They care where their food is coming from. And so that's why we ask that you just, are honest and transparent with them. So we'll ask you to display, in the peaches scenario, hey, these peaches are from so-and-so's farm. Not a big deal, pretty easy to do. And again, if you're not sure, it's just ask, and we can help you through that. 4, vendors must comply with all local, state, and federal regulations that apply to their products. And these include, but aren't limited to, things like pesticide licensing, a seal on weighted scales, state sales tax, health regulations for ready-to-eat foods, preserves, honey, canned foods labeled and limited as required, eggs labeled and sold at required internal temperatures, and then, right, just any other relevant health department guidelines based on what you're selling. So these all really relate to food items, as you probably noticed, apart from state sales tax. Here's a thing. I'll talk about the food items first. We will be inspected usually once, sometimes twice by the health department. So we want to encourage you strongly to do your due diligence up front, which is why we've shared that information about reaching out to the Cass County Health Department. By the way, they're really pretty awesome to work with. They want you to be successful, right? And they want to just help you get there. So it helps to go ahead and take care of that and understand things like what do you need to have on your label for your baked goods, right? Ahead of time rather than finding out when they come to inspect the market and then you gotta, kind of scramble. So we encourage that kind of stuff. Things like state sales tax collected as required. Our market is not in the business of, reviewing your financial records or verifying that you are or are not collecting sales tax and, reporting that. But of course, we encourage you again to look into, what you may be responsible for based on how you're operating as a business. We can point you in the right direction for that on how to, get your, state tax ID, your business license. Glad to help, get you in the right direction with that. For most of our vendors, I'll say for state sales tax, you would fall into the category of needing to report sales tax on an annual basis. So that's once a year. And, usually those amounts are fairly small, $20, $25 maybe in total sales tax due at the end of the year or less. So anyway, if you have questions about that, always happy to help you point you in the right direction. But no, not going to dig into your records and verify anything. All right. 5 handcrafted items. So this is for all my craft folks. This includes things like fine art, folk art, and heritage arts. Are definitely allowed, and we welcome that stuff at our market. We do discourage mass-produced items or items composed of mostly mass-produced items. Okay. We do reserve the right to kind of evaluate, improve, or deny items. So if you're not sure if it's an item that meets the market standards, just ask. And we're always happy to kind of help have that conversation. A mass-produced item, I think that makes sense in most cases what that would be, but the one I get usually questioned about is, well, what would be an item composed of mostly mass-produced items? And I think the easiest answer to that is something like maybe like a kit that you purchase like in a place like Hobby Lobby to make something. So I kind of think about like a paint by numbers kind of situation, right? You're not necessarily using your unique and special talents to create that product. So we want, again, to show off the amazing things that folks are growing and making and creating here, locally. And that's really what the market's all about. So that's what we're looking for. There are some items that cannot be sold under any circumstances. That includes live animals, weapons, although I will tell you we have made some exceptions in the past for things like handcrafted pocket knives, as long as they're sold safely and packaged in a way that folks can't, purchase them and, immediately harm someone. So again, willing to work with folks. No alcohol or controlled substances. Pretty common sense stuff. All right, 6, vehicles. vehicles are not allowed in the market area after opening. So opening is at 8 a.m. unless by special permission from the market managers. Vendors are also encouraged to leave customer parking open by leaving the parking spots closest to the market area vacant. So here's the deal with this one. Setup begins at 7 a.m. So from 7 to 8, you can pull in your vehicle, you can drop off your items, and then we ask you to, pull out of the market area, go park, come back, set up your stuff. That helps us avoid a kind of a bottleneck situation in the market when everyone's trying to get set up in the morning. So just plan your time accordingly. What is not acceptable is to show up at like 7:58 or 7:59, which we've had some folks do in the past, which became an issue. And your vehicle's still in the market area as customers are arriving and shopping and walking, right, in the market area. That becomes a safety issue. And if you remember, I said earlier, market managers' number one concern and duty is to make sure everybody's safe, okay? So that's why those vehicles aren't allowed in the market area after opening. Special permission for market managers is a situation where a couple times a year we might have someone that sells fresh corn. Fresh corn's pretty heavy. So we might make an exception that, a corn loaded truck might park on the corner of the market, for example. So again, talk to us if you're in one of those situations. As far as parking goes, we ask that you park, further away from the market area. So the other side of square is a great option. Just not the spots closest to the market. Why? We want customers to come shop and spend all their money, right, at the market. And we know that customers get a little discouraged the further they have to walk, right? We want the market to be a convenient shopping option for them. So we want to leave some parking spots open for them that are nice and close, especially for our more elderly customer base. We want to make sure that they can get there safely. 7, spaces are roughly 10 by 10 in area. Food products must be displayed off the ground and adequately protected from the elements. So no food products can go on the bricks. They have to be off the ground on a table, something like that. That's a health department rule. As well as adequately protected from the elements. That means covered, protected from rain, sun, etc. So that means a canopy or other covering. We have one person that uses like a patio umbrella. That checks the box. But even if you're not selling food items, we really strongly encourage that everyone have a canopy or umbrella, something to protect you from the elements again. Because, the market occurs in summer. Usually our mornings are pretty nice and enjoyable, but, as we get closer to the noon hour and close, it does heat up. So we want, again, all of our vendors to stay safe. So we really want you to have a canopy. And when you have a canopy or umbrella, we also want you to have weights to secure that canopy in case we have strong winds. Again, that becomes a safety concern if we have some strong gusts of wind all of a sudden and start to have canopies flying. They're taking your products with you. If you're hanging on to a canopy to try and hold it down, I've seen some people start to go with their canopies, right? It's just not a good situation. So make sure you have some weights to anchor that canopy down. That can be as easy as, some of the plastic jugs that cat litter comes in, milk jugs filled with sand or water, right? There are inexpensive options and ways to do that, but you do need to have that available. And of course, vendors are responsible for keeping their space clean, especially when you load out for the day. Vendors are discouraged from closing and leaving early. Special allowances can be made by working with the market managers in advance. What that means, the market is open until noon. We have a lot of customers, and it may surprise you that roll in about 10 till close, but they are ready to shop. So what happens if we have a vendor who unexpectedly, closes up an hour early is it sends this like message to the customers that like, oh, okay, well, it must be closing time. And they start to leave. And when you think about it, it's not fair to the other vendors, right, who are going to stay there and are still hoping to have a great, final sales hour. It also kind of leaves us, awkward with spaces and things like that. But we also know that people have lives and, you may have a family event to get to or another appointment that you have to keep, and you do need to leave a little early some Saturday, and we get that too. So what we ask you to do is just let a market manager know in advance, and we will work with you on that. It may mean that we move you closer to the edge of the market, so it's a little less obvious when you got to sneak out for the day, but we will totally make sure that we can work out how you can leave without causing, right, any issues for anybody else. And then 9, final rule here, smoking in the designated market area is prohibited. The market area ends with barricades on both sides of Lexington Street. If you are a smoker, just go outside of that area. And that was a request by our customers several years ago. All right, we doing good so far? Any questions? Okay. Good. We're going to roll right through this. All right, so now let's talk about spaces. So at the market, we have 2 primary types of spaces. And then we have a community space. Actually, I'll talk community space first because it's a quick one. Every Saturday, we have a community group space open. It's available to groups in the community that want to promote their cause, reach out, about, what they offer to the community. So folks that have used it in the past are like the Historic Society, the library. We've had 4-H groups come and sell some of the products that they've made as part of their projects, things like that. So if you are part of a group that might be interested in that, just know that that's available for no cost. We sign up groups for that twice per season. And then, we can assign, folks up an additional time if we still have openings, like by the time we get to halfway through the season. Now let's talk about the other vendor spaces, the per day space. So per day spaces are perfect for people who need some flexibility. So you're a person that wants to participate in the market, but you can't be there every Saturday, right? You've got other things going on in your life. And you just can't commit to being there on a weekly basis, but you want to be able to come when you are available. That probably means you're a per day vendor. What that means is that you come to the market on Saturday between 7 and 8 with enough time, right, of course, to set up and get your car out of the area. And you say, hey, I'm here. Where can I go? And, myself or one of the other market managers will say, oh, great. I'm glad to see you here. Let's send you to spot number 10 today or spot 15 or, whatever spot we have open. We've never turned away a vendor. We almost always have spots open. We have 2 sides of the street to fill. And then if we run out of room on those 2 sides, we can actually put an entire 3rd row down the middle of the street. which is pretty awesome when that happens. It makes me very, very happy. So we have lots and lots of room. The other benefit to being a per day space vendor is that there is absolutely no cost to being a per day vendor. So you just come when you can come and we find you a spot. It is a little helpful if you give us a heads up like the day before, but that is not required. Then on the flip side of that, if you're a vendor who knows that you really want to participate in the length of the season, so you plan to be there every week, this is your market, right? This is where you're going to be for, the majority of the season. You may be a seasonal space vendor. If you're a seasonal space vendor, here's how that works. So you're able to reserve a seasonal space, so a regular 10 by 10 space. The cost to reserve a space is $25 for the season. Now, along with the privilege to reserve that space, there are some rules attached to it. So seasonal spaces on the day of the market are considered reserved until 7:05 a.m. Okay. If you as a vendor have not either arrived by 7:05 or let one of the market managers know that you're on the way. So like an example would be, 7:05 hits and you're still 5 minutes down the road, you need to shoot us a message and say, hey, I'm still coming. Right. And then we know you're on the way. But if neither of those things happen, we're going to assume you're not coming for the day. And then we will fill your spot with any of those per day vendors that we have on hand, right? Who are looking for a spot to set up. The other rule for our seasonal space vendors is, again, because you've made that commitment, really, that you're going to be there the length of the season, we want you to stand by that commitment. So any seasonal spaces that remain unused for more than 4 weeks of the season can be reassigned. And so when you think about it, our season runs 4 months, June, July, August, September. So that means you can miss 1 week a month, or you can miss an entire month and still be fine and keep your seasonal space. But if you're missing more than that, maybe you should have been a per day vendor, right? So that's the time when we're going to have a discussion. The other way you can lose a seasonal space is if, honestly, you're just not following the rules and we have a problem working with you as a vendor overall, if that makes sense. So as long as you're doing those things and understand the rules, though, a seasonal space can be really handy if you are planning to be there and, do this on a regular basis. You know where your spot is in the morning. You just wave to me as you come in, right? And you go to the same spot you always go to. So knowing that those are your two options in space types, if you're interested in a seasonal space, you'll have your opportunity to kind of put your name down for one of those next. So we do that for the first time at the annual vendors meeting. So our in-person meeting yesterday, we had some folks put down their names for them. I'll get anybody's names who are interested in those today on that list as well. After these meetings, and we'll do one call, for folks that weren't able to attend. We'll give them till Wednesday to say, hey, I'm interested too. And then we'll close the interest period. After that, the market managers will review all of the information about who's interested and, all of this. And we'll go through a process to create the map for the 24 season. If there is a spot where more than one vendor has put their name, or we need to do some shifting, we do take certain criteria into consideration to help us make some decisions about who goes where in the market plan. Some things that we use to help us make decisions would be things like seniority, the types of products you sell, like food or non-food, past season participation. So things like if you've been a great vendor to work with, or a vendor that we had to, talk to multiple times about some rule issues, things like that would be things we'd naturally consider. But that does not mean in any way that a new vendor starting this season would not get a seasonal space. Okay. But we do try and also kind of keep things like vendors who sell something that may be similar apart from each other. So also some common sense things like that. Once we get all of the seasonal spaces laid out and mapped for the upcoming season, we will announce that. So that will be announced on things like the vendor group, on the website, right? So we'll post that announcement out there that the final space announcements are ready. You'll review that. If the space that you've been assigned works for you, that's when your $25 can be paid. You can pay that online, and we'll provide a link, or you can do that securely online, and we use PayPal for those transactions through our nonprofit. But you'll also be able to pay by cash or check or card transaction in person on the first day of the market. So you can pay that anytime between once they're announced and opening day. Okay. If for some reason you do lose your space, partway through the season, as we talked about, that is a non-refundable fee. Why we do that, honestly, the $25 fee goes back directly into the market to help us promote the market, and is a small slice of what the nonprofit spends to help keep the market going. So we won't refund that fee. We will use it to help keep the market moving forward. Okay. So with that, I'm going to take you over here to the map. And I'll leave this up here to take a look at, and then you can either take yourself off mute if you're interested in a seasonal space, and I'll grab those numbers and add them to the master list here, or I'll flip back and forth to the chat. But this is a map of the square. So you'll see here the spots start here. We've got the community space. Number 1 is occupied by the nonprofit information booth. So available spots truly start at 2 and go to 14. And then on the opposite side of the street, go 15 through 27. This is where the third row would go, but I don't actually take those for seasonal space signups. That's just really for, per day vendors if we max out for the day on both sides. These, are not assignable spaces. This is the junk in the trunk flea market on those second Saturdays. All right. And that's that. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording this time. That takes us through the agenda today. And then I'll just hang out for any additional questions or to grab those seasonal space assignments that you would be interested in.